Well, welcome. My name is Trisha Sheffield. I'm with the Board of Trustees in Lewisville ISD, and thank you for joining our session today, and thank you for allowing me to join you via video. One of the things that we wanted to share with you from the board perspective when we went through the transition process and searching a new superintendent was really kind of stepping back and evaluating as a board what we felt were the priorities of the district. About 4.5 years ago, our community embarked on a strategic design process. And this was not something that was driven by our former superintendent. This was truly a community effort. People from across the district, from all of our zones, from our feeders, people with kids of different ages, people who didn't have children in schools, came together to really discuss what was important in education and what were our hopes and dreams for our students. And out of that, we created the strategic design that has really driven everything we've done in Lewisville ISD. So when we got to the point where we were having to search for a new superintendent, we felt like coming together as a board to discuss that was important. We had change over in board members, and so we really wanted to just regroup and sit down and make sure that we were all on the same page with what strategic design meant to us, what it meant to our community, and what it would mean for the future of LISD in selecting a new superintendent. So again, before we made any steps into the search process, we hashed it out and we talked about what it meant, what was important to us. There was disagreement. There was ultimately, though, coming together around what we believe the community desired in our school district, and that really fell back to our strategic design process. Because again, and I can't reinforce this enough, the strategic design process and the outcome of that was not a superintendent's vision. It was the community's. And so we felt very strongly about remaining true to that in selecting our new superintendent. So once we had that in place and once we had the search firm in place, the next step for us was creating a profile. We had to sit down as board members and talk about what, or discuss or evaluate for us what the most important characteristics would be. But that was really just the starting point, because the next piece was really, for us, very important, and that was reaching out to our community. Asking our community what were the important characteristics for them in a new superintendent. So as we went through that process, there was an online questionnaire, there were focus groups. We did our best to really make sure that if community members were interested in sharing their opinion, that we wanted to provide an opportunity to hear them. So that was all compiled. We created a profile based on those results, and then the search firm set off on finding us candidates that we could interview. Again, everything kind of came back to these were our priorities, and this was our next step, and strategic design was still very much at the forefront of that. So all that was in place. We had candidates. For me and for our board, the next piece of that, we had great candidates, all highly qualified, but it was important for us that when we started interviewing, that the questions that we used were our own, that they reflected the ideals of our district, of our community, that they really spoke to some of the needs that we had. Our search firm was wonderful in that they provided us a template and some suggestions for questions, but we felt very strongly that ultimately those questions needed to be our own. And so again, we met and we hashed out here are the questions that are important to us, and looked at some of the concerns we had as a district, some of the things that we felt like we were doing really well and wanted to continue. We looked at all those things and then framed them in questions. And I really feel like at the end of the day, it allowed us to have a group of candidates, superintendent candidates, that really spoke to the next step for Lewisville ISD. We had wonderful candidates. We were blessed by the qualifications of those who came before us to interview, and ultimately we were excited to have selected somebody that embraced the ideals. all of the candidates could have done that. They each brought to the table the important qualities that our community was desiring. So it was a great position to be in because we knew that we had wonderful candidates to choose from, highly qualified, and then ultimately we had to make the decision about what was going to be best for Lewisville ISD, what was going to be best for our community, and who would be the right person to move forward the vision and the mission of strategic design.